Have you ever wished the creative process was a lot more practical and a lot less mysterious? Hi, this is Amanda Rooker, Executive Editor at SplitSeed. And it's spring here on the East Coast in Virginia, and so what better time to talk about the creative process when plants are growing and blooming all around us? The truth is, gardening happens to be a great analogy for understanding the creative process in a much more practical way. So this next series of tips is going to talk through the creative process following that analogy of gardening. So the first element in the creative process is to spend time in the garden. And I want to start with just a little story about a real garden. My garden last spring. Last year I planted a lot of plants from seed, hoping to grow a lot of vegetables in our garden. And I did everything right. I planted the seeds, I planted them in the right place, but it didn't bear much fruit. Now, why would that be? The real reason was that I didn't spend time in the garden. I got too busy, I was spending too much time inside, maybe thinking about the garden, but I wasn't actually in the garden to see what was happening in order to know what to do. So that's why this first element, to spend time in the garden, is so important, because if you want your ideas to grow, you need to spend time where they are. So there are two parts to that. The first part is to know where the garden is. And your garden, for your ideas, is simply your imagination. And a lot of people have different terms they like to use for this. You might call it your heart, your mind, your spirit, your soul. I like to call it my right brain because it helps me differentiate it from the left brain, which really can't create things. It can't grow things. It has a very important role to play in the creative process later. As we'll see, it's the process of pruning once that growth begins to happen. But you can't start there. So I think of it as my right brain. So first you need to know where your ideas grow, which is your imagination or your right brain. The second part is to know what to do when you get there, when you get to the garden of your ideas. And it's actually quite simple. It's simply to be rather than to do. So when you spend time in your garden, you're spending time being in your imagination, just taking note of what ideas are there. Are there any ideas that you have in your imagination that may not have taken full root yet? Ideas that make you excited to think about them and think, gosh, this would really be helpful for someone else too. So those are the two steps to element one, spending time in your garden. First, know where your garden is, which is your imagination, not your left brain or your thinking part of your brain, but the creative part. And the second part is to spend time being there rather than doing to start, just by noticing what's there, what ideas might already be there. For more tips, feel free to visit us at split-seed.com. And if this tip was helpful for you, feel free to forward it to a writer that you know.